Okay, we are at season 4, episode 6 of Experience This. I'm excited for this one today. We're going to have a discussion about the future of work and travel and the future of everything. We'll see where that takes us.
Everything. Wow.
Everything.
And we only have what, 45 minutes or so?
Yeah, we'll do the concise version.
Happy to be here.
Let me start with our co-hosts, Laurie.
Hey everyone, it's good to be here. Laurie Timoney with Insightful International. Looking forward to the conversation with Mauricio.
And this is Bruce Rosard. I'm one of the co-founders of Arrival. Love your newsletter, Mauricio. Probably the best out there for travel tech, and all kinds of great things come out of it every week. And really looking forward to talking to the man.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. On the newsletter, for those that haven't subscribed, they should. You'll tell us where to subscribe. But to me, it's just a really well put together piece, and I just love the structure of it, and it kind of follows a theme. But maybe you can give us just a quick intro, Mauricio, because I know you've got obviously a long history in travel. One of the OGs of travel. Maybe you can give us a background on that.
Yeah, I mean, my arrival to the travel industry was as a co-founder of eDreams, and this was in 1999. So I was at eDreams from 99 to 2014, actually 2015, so 1 year after our IPO. And so at eDreams, I was there. At the beginning, I was more focused in product. Then when we had the product up and running, I focused on marketing and distribution and international expansion. I was also on the board. So it was a great experience overall. I mean, we raised venture capital money at the beginning. We had 2 private equity exits, and then we had an IPO. So experienced a lot of different kind of up and downs, but mostly it was a very successful experience and a great learning time for me. And then, since 2015, I continued to be involved in the travel industry, but in a different capacity. And yeah, the newsletter is something that I started 5 years ago. And as a result of the newsletter, it's something that has allowed me to keep a finger on the pulse of the industry, of the travel industry, and listening to different needs from different participants. I've launched a couple of products that address those needs, and mostly it's connecting capital with founders, so money with people that are looking for money. With founders and entrepreneurs looking for VCs, also talent and companies hiring, and things of that nature. But yeah, so it's allowed me to be to keep a finger on what's going on, and I also continue to be working with a few companies at any point in time.
You know, I read a post, I think it was during COVID at some point, and it was from someone who was an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and they were looking at starting the next company or becoming a content creator, doing a bunch of newsletters and this and that. And they chose content creator, and he'd gone through and found all the sort of pros and cons. And it turns out from what he'd looked at, it actually hits a lot of the same sort of nerves, creating content and running a company, which... To me, when I read that, I'm thinking this is totally different things. But when he went through what you actually get out of doing that, about learning and about sort of understanding an industry and having influence over people, it's actually a lot of the same things.
Yeah, and also the interesting thing is what it allows you. Like, first of all, it gives you kind of a responsibility of understanding what's going on in thinking. Also, sometimes the best thinking comes when you have to write it, right? So it's kind of very easy to say things, but it's when you write things, you have a responsibility of at least making some sense, and putting yourself behind it, putting your reputation behind it. That's, there's a cliche about the best way to understand something is to teach it, right? And I mean, I'm also, I have, 20% of my time I teach entrepreneurship in college. And it really is a great way to learn, a great way to understand what's going on. But for me, the most interesting thing also is to understand what the needs are, and if I have the ability to create or to launch something that addresses those repetitive needs that I'm being asked for, that's what I'm doing. And I mean, you have amazing, content creators that started as content creators but have gigantic media companies, right? So like I'm thinking of people like Lenny, from Lenny's podcast and Lenny's newsletter, Paki McCormack and Mario Gabriele, people like that. I mean, maybe it started just like as a simple newsletter or media, but I would not only call them as content creators. They're entrepreneurs, they're founders who are launching new things. So that's interesting.
I have to say, I appreciate the fact that you give people reason to think.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed a little bit of a shift in your newsletters lately. I think for a while I felt like I would, and I've always loved your newsletter, but I feel like, for a while it was almost like you were reporting on certain things, like, okay, here's this company and they just landed this and this is what they're doing. And it was more like a factual kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've noticed in at least the last month, that you're introducing concepts where, it just requires like a level of, oh, I didn't think about that. Or, just throwing something in there that I was like, wow, look at this. This is cool. Mauricio's coming up with something totally different right now. So
Well,
I think, I don't know what happened there, but from my point of view, I noticed a bit of a shift.
Well, I'm glad that you noticed it, and I'm not sure if that shift is intentional or was the result of kind of a conscientious decision, but it's also a way for me to stay interested and entertain. And I think that there's a lot of great. I don't see myself as reporting hot takes, or being kind of like a PR branch for companies or press release. There's enough of that already, and I want to think a little bit deeper about things, and if I can bring a fresh perspective, that's great. I mean, I'm always trying to write for founders. That's who I have in mind, and that gives me a responsibility to always try to think about, so what, right? So why can this be applied to me or to them? So by understanding the one person that you're trying, or the one persona that I'm trying to talk to, that again, that it gives me an added layer of clarity in terms of, well, if I'm in their shoes, what would I like to take away, or what can I use right now as a differentiator to make my business better. So I'm glad to hear that, Lorian. I appreciate it.
So can we just want to talk a little bit about the newsletter a little bit more, and then we could move on. Like, when did you start? How many people do you have reading it? You've identified founders as one of the audiences. Some of us read it every week. We understand, I really appreciate what you're doing. A lot of people that might be listening don't follow it. So just give us a little bit more of the structure. There's not a lot of great B2B emails out there, newsletters out there, or podcasts for that matter, in the travel tech industry. So just give us an overview of that, and then we can move on from there.
Yeah. So the idea of the newsletter is I think about 10 different topics or or items that I want to share. Ideally, it has to have kind of like a running thread. Each newsletter has like a main spirit, like a self-sustaining spirit. Not every single entry, not every single one of the 10 entries necessarily has to address that one topic, but I try to have a kind of a thread running through most of the 10 entries. And it's a newsletter that I send every 12 days or every 2 weeks or so. It reaches an audience of travel professionals. So the travel professionals, meaning founders, entrepreneurs, executives, operators, people that are running businesses. I would say that 90% of that of the audience is that. And then the rest is maybe investors, people in consultants, things like that. But it's it's a very it's more of a, I'm talking to professionals, to travel professionals, and the audience is around 20,000 20,000 professionals.
You have a job board. You have
So
startup board, right? Like information.
Exactly. Yeah, and that is something that, you know, when I started hearing kind of repetitive requests. So founders telling me, hey, do you know of VCs or angels that would be interested in investing in my startup? I mean, if I had somebody in mind on top of my head, I would make the connection, right? Or vice versa, you know, investors asking me if there were some interesting startups raising money, and I was doing that one-off. But when I start getting kind of very repetitive type of requests, I think of a way of doing something that is more scalable, that kind of removes me from being a middleman, and where there is also some monetization involved. And the monetization is always on the weaker, on the stronger side of the equation. So you know, the job board and the talent network, it's the companies hiring talent, the ones that pay, and on the travel investor network, which is, you know, a platform that I launched in order to connect startups that I think are doing or are currently raising, and I think that they're worth paying attention to or paying a closer look at. And so in the Travel Investor Network, it's the investors that pay to have access to this, you know, to the 200 plus startups that I've been recommending over the last 2 or 3 years.
Very cool. Very cool.
You know?
Yeah.
That's the entrepreneur in you, Mauricio. Whatever you're doing, you have to scale it, right? If it's investors or jobs, and you have to scale.
I try to scale it, and also I try to, you know, do something that doesn't require me renting my time, which is not a very good investment. So that's kind of the logic behind scaling it. It's really trying to add value. I mean, really, that's above and beyond. Like that's a prime motivation. Is if I know that enough people are telling me something, let me try to think of a way that I can deliver that value in a more consistent way, in a less one-off way. And if I can make money with that, that's great, right? And I don't always make money. I mean, I really work. Like, for example, like something that I recently launched was like an AI agent that I spent a lot of time optimizing and improving, and I'm constantly adding new kind of functionalities to it, and that's something that, you know, I'm not earning money, but I've had really good feedback in terms of the value that it brings to operators and entrepreneurs.
So one of your recent newsletters, I think the one before last, was around pessimism, and it was around the future of work. It's hard for us to know what everyone's talking. everyone always says everyone's talking about this, but we all live in our little bubble, right? So I don't think anybody actually knows what everyone's talking about. I feel like everyone's talking about the future of work right now. That's all I'm seeing the last few weeks. But you wrote a newsletter themed around sort of the future of work. The one that caught my eye was Andreessen, because I've seen a lot of his interviews recently. He's a interesting guy. I like listening to Andreessen. I know a lot of people don't love him, but he's definitely interesting. But maybe you could sort of do a quick summary of that and your thoughts on that and why you pulled that as a theme.
Yeah, I mean the motivation there is because I think that and I wrote this in the newsletter. I think that the world is much more interesting and much better than whatever media headlines suggest, right? Number one. Second, I think that what I was saying a little bit earlier is that pessimism has this kind of quality that it sounds intelligent, right? Or people who adopt this very pessimistic outlook, or this kind of cynic outlook, they sound intelligent. They sound intelligent because they think that they're sounding very nuanced, but the reality, as we know, is that it's a lot easier to destroy. It's a lot easier to be a pessimist than to build, right? And by definition, every single entrepreneur, every single person building something is because they believe in the future, or at least they're optimistic about their capability to affect the future. And I'm not saying that everything that you need to be building has to be like make the world a better place, right? Like everybody says in Silicon Valley, or that's kind of a cliche, make the world a better place. Just build something that somebody wants, right? Like as simple as that. And that by itself is, I think that that's why founders are optimistic by nature. If you're not optimistic, there's absolutely no reason why you should be starting something. There's no reason, because if the world is going to be ending soon, I'm sure that you have better uses of your time than having a terrible time, running through obstacles. So I think that was kind of like the motivation behind it. And by saying this, I'm not saying that we just need to be completely devoid of realism, or I mean, we understand what the reality is, but the motivation was just to say that disruption after disruption, and I gave different examples in the newsletter. Pessimists have been wrong, and disruption after disruption, like those who believe in that they can do something good in the future, have ended up being right, and have at least seem to be happier. And if you're wrong or right, at least I'd rather choose to be happier. But I heard, I think it was when I was saying right now about not always being optimist, I remember, I think it was the founder of Stripe, Patrick Collison, I think his name. Collison. He mentioned something about being micro pessimist and macro optimist. And I think that's kind of the right approach, right? So because when, like, if you're thinking about different layers, I mean, the layer that I've been referring to, like the structural optimism, that's just layer one, right? Your ability to think that the future is better, and of course in the travel industry, I mean, it doesn't apply any better to any industry than in the travel industry. I mean, if I think that we are lucky enough that I think that humans intrinsically and structurally, we are designed to want to travel, to want to explore, to want to know new things. So, so I think it's very difficult to be a pessimist if you're working in the travel industry, because long term, I mean, this kind of layer one of optimism, the structural optimism, in a sector like the travel industry, we are lucky because it's something that it's human nature to want to explore, to want to go beyond their borders, to get to know new things, and we kind of are reborn while we travel. So we're lucky to be in a sector like this where we know that long term there's a business in people traveling. Long term, we're in a business where people are traveling real time, right? And if there's another business where there's like some AI type of remote travel and everything, even better. The pie gets bigger, right? It's not only people that want to explore things face to face and talk to people face to face. Hey, if there's a new pie that grows that is another type of travel, good, right?
So let's go around the room a bit and I'd love to get different sort of opinions on this. So the subject has been sort of the future of work. You know, one of the things I mentioned, Andreessen. For those that don't know Mark Andreessen, he founded Mosaic, which was kind of the first browser, and then Netscape, which was really the first browser. He kind of founded the internet almost. He jokes that I think when he was at college, he was tech support for Mosaic, which was the browser, which was the internet, for 3 years. So he said pretty much for 3 years I was the IT tech support for the internet, and people used to email him like, my computer's broken and all this stuff. But one of my favorite quotes he says is the four most dangerous words in investing is "this time it's different," and the 12 most dangerous words in investing are the 12 most dangerous words in investing are "this time it's different." So whichever side you take, you're in trouble. I believe this time it's different. I think, and everyone says, "Oh, we've been through this before. We've been through the .com, and we've been through mobile, and we've been through social." I believe this time it's different. This is like nothing we've ever seen, and I'm not necessarily pessimistic, but I think this is revolutionary, the stage we're at, and it's not just the next thing. I'd love to hear maybe Laurie and Bruce, and just sort of your general views on the future of work and where we're going and how that applies to travel. On that, and then hear your opinion as well on it, sort of, Mauricio, as a in general thought.
Yeah, I'll kick in with a thought, and then I was going to ask what kind of feedback you got to that article, because I don't know exactly how you receive feedback, whether it's more direct mail back to you or what have you, because I don't think you have comments typically in the newsletter, right? But let's get to that in a minute. I have two comments on that, Christian. One is with our last guest, who was Aaron Seckery from Lawak. Basically, he's building a tool for tour guides to utilize to build AI storytelling anywhere in the world. And it was interesting when he registered for Arrival, we asked people, are you an operator or are you a tech company or are you a distribution platform? And he registered as an operator because he's, you can go on Lawak as an app and you can get tours. So in that way, he's a tour guide, right? Except he's not the tour guide. He's enabling tour guides, storytellers, to use Lawak as a way to tell those stories. So then, is he a tech company? But on Lawak, if you have 1,000 different storytellers and anywhere in the world you can get a story, is he a distribution platform? So, when you talk about the future of work, in our sector, that kind of thing got pretty interesting as an internal discussion of, who is Lawak from that kind of category. That's one comment I have. The other one, I just want to throw out, I heard a podcast about a book called The Infinity Machine. Have you guys heard about this book yet? It's about Demis Hassabis, who was the founder of DeepMind that he sold to Google for $650 million. And, he was a chess prodigy and basically has done things that no one else has done in AI, and is building a pretty scary view of what's coming when super intelligence comes to AI, and that's a whole different level of the future of work, I think. So if any of you have heard or read anything about that, it was pretty interesting. I need to go read that book.
Yeah, I watch every podcast he does. He did a great movie as well on Netflix about the AlphaGo, when they beat Go in the. He's kind of the main man, right? He runs AI.
Well, he was like, do I sell to Facebook? Do I sell to Google? Like, they were chasing him, and I think Facebook offered him more money, but he decided to sell to Google for some obvious reasons. But yeah.
Yeah, I am, in thinking about your question, Christian, when I first read Mauricio's article, I guess I'm pretty much an optimist by nature. And, to your point, Mauricio, I've been in the travel industry like a million years. So I've seen a lot of things happen. I've been through a number of wars where everybody said, oh, this is just horrible. Like, things are just going to fall apart. And, they fall apart and they come back together again. And to your point, I think that human beings by nature, they want to travel. They need to travel. They want that connection, that, ability to explore, et cetera. But when I was reading your article, initially I was like, yeah, he's right. We had flight, and we had the phone, and we had, there's all these things people just freaked out about. And then they came back together and realized eventually, like, this is amazing. And part of me was thinking, the thing about the pessimist is that not necessarily, I don't even know if we need to call it pessimist, but they kind of provide checks and balances to some degree, right? There has to be that level of accountability that I think is in some ways missing a little bit here. To your point, Christian, I think we are in a different time. This is moving like at the speed of lightning. And what I'm starting to see that businesses are building like crazy on foundations that are not actually foundations they should be building on. So they're building on stuff that needs to be fixed. And I'm also finding that this is happening to me all the time now. Oh, your session is up. It doesn't actually start again until 1:00 Eastern time. Do you want to buy more tokens now? Well, hell yeah, because I'm working on a project and I need to get this finished. So I think I need to buy more tokens. Meanwhile, businesses are going from, here's this $20 plan. Oh, nope, we got to go to the max. That's $100 now for every person. So what happens when everyone becomes dependent? Because they're already dependent. So what happens when they become dependent and they don't have the money anymore? What do businesses do? Do only the businesses that have the money, are they the ones that get to be competitive? So all of this stuff is starting to like move around in my head because I'm living in this world right now on both of those counts. And I'm not pessimistic. I'm a little pessimistic. I'm like, okay, this is good, but we do need some structural support here that I think is not. I don't know, Christian, what you think about that, but that's kind of what I've been thinking lately.
Yeah, Mauricio, what do you think? Where are we heading?
I mean, I think that I'm not one of. I think that there's very few people that live in the future, and that's an ability that like a handful of people that are around in the world can have that ability, and I don't, right? So it's just like, it's very difficult for me to think about when the iPhone started. There's not a single person in the world who said, well, the killer applications are going to be like geo, like the Ubers or Airbnb, because you're going to know there's new technologies that come in and that completely change the game, and so it's very, very difficult to think about what's ahead when a new technology comes. And that happened in the internet, where the first applications was just like reading the newspaper, right? It's just like doing what you do normally, but then you just change the interface. And I think we're at that stage. So it's tricky for me to think about where we're going, but I agree with what y'all are saying. I mean, for example, I think it's if you're not a pessimist on the execution, at the execution level, at the micro level, looking at your acquisition costs, looking at your distribution deals, and looking at everything, you're going to blow up your unit economics, right? So you have the obligation as an operator to be extremely pessimistic on a micro level, right? On an execution level. But where I think that the optimism comes into play is that only the entrepreneurs understand that there's a benefit in terms of timing, right? Like, in order for you to succeed, I forgot where that matrix come from, but there's a matrix that is like consensus, not consensus, and then you're either right or you're wrong. And the only way to make, a great business is if you're in the anti-consensus and the right side. So and the whole optimist edge that I wrote in that newsletter is that it's just doing things before they feel safe, right? But after like, it's just before everybody feels like that. Obviously, that's where we're going, right? So it's it's great to hear when Christian says that he has a different view. I mean, that's an amazing thing, because he understands something that might be completely anti-consensus today. If everybody's thinking in one way and he sees it in a different way, that's where the opportunity comes in of investing earlier in a product, investing as a if you're an investor, investing in companies that have a different perspective. But for sure, I think that you need. I haven't met anybody who has been successful running a business if they're not pessimistic on a very execution level, right? But also, if you're building a team, I mean, you have to survive very long cycles, and very long cycles where you have huge hits, right? And particularly the travel industry, we know that it's not only global pandemics, it's explosion of volcanoes and things like that do bring a lot of kind of negative things. But if you want to keep the morale high in your company, and you want to avoid kind of an internal decay, you also need to be culturally optimist, to inspire and to have people look and envision a better way. I actually think it was Andreessen who. No, it was Bill Gurley, who's I really like the way he thinks as well. But Bill Gurley said something about founders having the loneliest job in the world, right? Because if a company is not doing well, if a company is doing poorly, you have to bring that positive energy, and you have to make people believe that it's possible. But if the company is doing great, I mean, you have to bring people down to earth, right? You have to kind of be running counter emotionally to where everybody in the organization feels. So I'm not saying that you always need to be an optimist, but there are but I do think that intrinsically founders need to be optimistic about the outlook of what they're building. If not, there's no reason to build anything. And optimistic about what the future holds for the industry or the category that you're building in. And in travel, I think, again, we are lucky that
a great example of that, like Amazon founded around 1994. lost billions of dollars, right? So there they go. The founder, Bezos, like optimist, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Kept getting investors, probably maybe they were pessimistic about their execution, but he kept going for it because he had that optimism. And then
Right.
took them until like 2001 until they finally got profitable. So 7 years of getting investors to believe in the optimism. So I think that's aligned.
And it's a constant sales job, right? So as if you're there, you have to be selling to investors, you have to be selling to future team members, you have to be selling to partners, you have to be selling to everybody. And I don't know a successful salesperson out there who is a pessimist by nature, right? So again, like the core function is that you're selling something, you're selling a dream, you're selling something that does not exist today, and you're optimistic that will happen. If not, you're no business to be there.
Yeah, I think the difference is in this case is, I mean, there's such a big conversation and a big challenge, right, for all of mankind, quite frankly. I mean, it's when you talk about the future of work, there's no question that it's going to be hugely impactful when it comes to the number of people that are going to be displaced. And now what's going to happen, when something that cost, X amount of thousands of dollars before now costs, $560. I mean, it's just, that's the thing I think that is, as far as the future of work conversation, that's the big, one of the big topics of conversation going on right now is obviously what's going to happen.
So something I keep going back to, and I mentioned this probably a lot, maybe I'm not sure on this podcast, but it was the week of ChatGPT. So November 30th, 2022, and it was Sam Altman. I'd never heard of Sam Altman at the time. I should have done because he ran YC, but I'd never heard of him. And I watched his interview the week of ChatGPT, and somebody said, "What do you think about at night?" And you expected him to think about like product and how much he's going to charge, and he's like, "Number one, I think about capitalism might fail." And then number two is like access to tokens and all this stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Capitalism might fail, but it stuck with me. And he explained it, and and he's right. And I'm a diehard capitalist, but I think capitalism fails going forwards, and I think that's a problem. The other angle, and we can fill the gaps maybe afterwards, but I don't know if anyone read the Jack Dorsey essay this week, which was really good. But he basically wrote, and he starts talking about the Roman Empire because that's what you have to do. And companies are built around information systems, right? So they were built with all these layers, and you can only really have 10 direct reports. Some people say 6 or 7, whatever it is. But it's all based on having, if you want to scale, the information has to get through to the top so you can make decisions. And it's all based around humans. I talk about data compression a lot, but it is based on compressing that data and handing it up the chain to make the decisions and then have that information flow back down. So that's all based around humans passing off information because that's the only thing we've had. Now we don't have that. Anybody at any point in the company can have access to the correct information with the correct context, having gone through the AI. So basically, he argues we've just flattened the entire corporate structure of every company. Yeah, you might need still 1 or 2 layers, but you don't need 3, 4, 5, 6 layers anymore. So his argument is everything we built as far as company structures doesn't work going forwards. And we have to just redesign the way companies work. So when you plug that into the future of work and these jobs disappear anyway, and the fact that these big companies need to restructure, it's just so disruptive.
Restructure makes sense, obviously. I don't understand capitalism is going to fail. I mean, Sam Altman is raising a ton of money at $1 trillion valuation or whatever it might be today. That sounds pretty capitalist to me.
We lose the tax base. The tax base, I mean, he wrote an essay this week We lose the all these white collar jobs where all the money is. Developers, right? We don't need developers today. You can't.
When also when I hear the that type of arguments, I also think about the incentives of regulatory capture, right? So whenever you have an open AI talking, or whatever gigantic company talking about the catastrophic times coming, it helps them, right? It's like, hey, let's regulate this. And who wins when startups cannot win in an overregulated environment? It's the people who have the infrastructure, the lawyers, all the things that they need in order to keep it kind of keep them as almost monopoly. So there's also a regulatory capture there. But when I don't remember when it was. I think it was related to AI when everybody was talking about the first profession that is going to disappear in healthcare is like radiologists, right? And it was like my father-in-law. He's now retired, but he was a doctor and he was a radiologist, and the fact is that there's actually more demand for radiologists today than before, right? Because there's more activity happening. There's a larger number of activity, which requires a larger number of whatever small ingredient radiologists still keep. If there's a larger output of X-rays, it happens that there's like an increasing demand for radiologists today. So it goes against what we thought, and that's what I keep on. Things might be different today, but I just think that particularly with this time, it's if it was difficult to predict the future before, I don't think we have any capability of understanding exactly where we're going. But if you believe in the ability of humankind to adapt, and again, that's something that is within ourselves, we're going to get through it, right? So, but for sure, I think about the need to first live and build like an optimist. But we will all need to survive being very pessimists, right? So we need to survive being pessimists, and we need to get through it being pessimists, and trying to foresee what we can do for ourselves, for our futures, to kind of try to keep ahead. But again, like if we're talking about the industry of the experiences, again, like experiences are about connecting. It's about emotions. It's about human to human connection. If you're in another more infrastructure type of business, maybe things are different. But at the very core level, we might just, if people have more time, if people are going to have more experiences in the future, right? So that just opens up a world of new opportunities where the pie is getting bigger, and maybe that's something great.
Maybe we will all be going to a 4-day work week.
4 days? How about 4 hours?
Yeah, 4 hours. Yeah, all of a sudden everyone's going to have a lot more time. But yeah, I mean, big conversation, right? How are we all going to have money, and how much money do we actually need now, and there's all this kind of thing is. Wow.
I think that the part Andreessen, and I've listened to him a lot this week, I think the part that he gets wrong, and it's the whole argument about there's unlimited demand for cognitive work, right? We can all build more stuff. Everyone knows that. And like with code, every software company needs twice as much code, or everyone's got features they can't get to, which is fine. But we don't need unlimited. So we're going to have, in effect, unlimited cognitive work. pretty much today for some things. Today, unlimited code, pretty much within, is there today. But we're going to have unlimited all cognitive work. And the demand is higher than the supply right now, but the demand isn't infinite. So supply becomes infinite, demand goes up a little bit. That's a massive problem. The thing everyone talks about, it's 1/100th of the cost. It's not like 10% cheaper to run these call centers. It's 1% today, according to Klarna.
And maybe we're going to have to learn to build something with our hands, right? Something that AI cannot build. But it's also an advantage to live in a place. I mean, I live in New Orleans. Believe me, you go to the street in New Orleans, people don't give a crap about AI. Their day-to-day is not influenced by AI, right? So if you live in Silicon Valley, you might be making the mistake that the entire world is dependent on AI. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And if we believe it is, hey, let's learn new skills. Let's be a carpenter. Let's build things. I don't know. I mean, if we believe that there's not going to be any need for us as high-skilled cognitive workers, whatever it is, if that's what we do believe, then maybe it's time to take go to a technical school and learn about being an electrician or learning other things that again the majority of the population is doing. So it's
sorry, Mauricio, go ahead.
No, that sometimes it's also interesting to take a step back and see how most people are living.
Yeah. And I think that, it's interesting because now you hear all the time, well, what are the human skills that are valuable? Like, how can I lend value if I'm a human and I want to have a job? And, but what I'm also learning is like even using Claude or whatever, which seems to be what I'm using most of the time now. It's not right all the time. You still need to have the ability to think, and you need to have, especially if you're somebody that, somebody's relying on you for your experience or your or whatever. You look at it and you go, no, that's not right. No, that's not the way to look at it. You got to look at it like this. And it's so funny because when you put it back in and say, actually, it should be structured like this. And then it says, oh, you're right. It actually should be structured like this.
Whenever you correct an LLM, it always says, oh, sorry. Yes, you're
Good
right.
job.
Yeah.
Great thinking.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I'm sure it happens to you as well when you're reading, but it's not only that it might be wrong, but also it seems like we're all reading like the style. I mean, I just cannot. It's very difficult for me to read things now on LinkedIn or even like I listen to books on Audible. I stopped listening to a book because absolutely every single construct was an AI typical construct, right? So that's when also the attention, I stopped paying attention to whenever I see that there's very little human thinking behind, or at least an attempt to make it human, right?
Yeah.
Like
you see an M dash and you're done. You stop.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
But it's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? That and I feel the same way. I get wound up on LinkedIn when people, because it actually does sound often intelligent, but I have no interest in reading what AI outputs, even if it's better. And if you say to me, article A, article B, article A is far superior to B, but it was written by AI, I'll read B, it's weird that humans want to do that. It's weird that you choose something that's worse just because it came from a human. But I think most people feel that way.
And the number, and what is more surprising is the number, is the engagement and the likes and everything in things that are completely directly from AI to LinkedIn or to a post or something. So that's what makes me think that again we're in a minority. We might be a little bit too self-aware of all these things.
It's a small bubble. Yeah.
Yeah.
Christian, you want to wrap it up with one of your
well, let's do a quick fire. You just made me think then, Mauricio, because I am in San Francisco and it is a bubble. And soon after ChatGPT came out, I was in Bangladesh and I'm just walking around Bangladesh thinking that this place isn't getting touched by AI anytime soon. But that's most places, right? I spend a lot of time in upstate New York as well, and it never comes up in conversation. It just doesn't come up.
Be clear, upstate New York, where you hang out, is the middle of nowhere.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just people talking about the cow. The cow got
Your favorite restaurant that I visited they were flatlanders. Like the earth is flat. That's what they were talking
flat
about.
earther, yeah. We could have a whole conversation about him.
We should get that guy on.
We're going to do a quick fire, then, Mauricio. I don't know if you know our quick fire, but you need to tell us the three best places you've been, countries, ideally countries, and 3 places that you haven't been there yet that you'd like to, like 3 bucket list places.
Oh, wow. All right.
And then we'll talk about Mexico and the World Cup once you've thought about the answers to this.
I'm like a 3-time immigrant. So as a 3-time immigrant, I'm always very appreciative to the country that invites me. And I feel a big responsibility to be a good guest in the countries that I'm welcomed in. So I'm extremely welcome and thankful for the United States. I love this country and I love what this country has done for humanity. And again, like we're talking about optimism and positivity and thinking big and crazy. So the United States has been an example of that, and so it's a country that I very much admire. I'm originally from Mexico, so I absolutely love Mexico. And yeah, I love Mexico's it's a very surreal country, and it's talking about anti-consensus. I mean, it's like you never know what's going to surprise you from Mexico, right? And that's something that I love, and I love people, the Mexicans, like the personality, the approach, the energy, and I love Spain, right? I love Spain because it's another country that welcomed me as an immigrant. That's where my ancestors come from, and I love Spain and how much it has to offer. And again, like these countries, like regardless of what you want, you can like nature, you can like history, you can like culture, you can like anything. It has something to offer, right? It has beaches, it has geography, it has everything. So that's what I like. In terms of places that I would like to go, or I would say activities I've always had as a bucket list to maybe it's very kind of not very original, but I love animals, I love nature, and I want to do a safari, right? I've always been postponing doing a safari, and finally I'm going to do it this December with my family. We're going to go to Tanzania. That's one. The other one is the Galapagos Islands, and maybe doing like interacting with nature and with how different kind of nature behaves with humans in that environment. And then the last one is I've been to Italy many times, but I want to experience Italy more in depth. And that's something that I hope to spend more time in Italy. And I would add Japan. Japan is a complete unknown to me. And it's a completely different world that I haven't been exposed, but I can sense that I would love it. That I would love a lot of the sensitivities, the aesthetics of Japan. So that's another pending destination that I have.
Good answers.
Those are good ones.
I gotta say, Mexico is still top of my list of places I've been. It's been locked in there for probably 20 years. Last thing, are Mexico going to get past the last 16 of the World Cup for the first time, or what? Don't they always get to the last 16? And who's going to win the World Cup? This is your last quick fire.
Mexico is going to do what we always do, which is like we seem to be playing well, and then we always lose at the 16th. So I'm not an optimist.
That's not
there.
being optimistic.
It's not being optimistic.
But he's got a second country coming up here. I know he has.
And I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Brazil winning.
Oh, well.
Okay.
It's difficult to bet against Germany, right? As always. What was it? Who said it? Is like soccer is a game where you have 11 against 11, and then Germany always ends up winning, right, or something like that. I don't know if it was Beckenbauer.
20 years ago, but Germany is not Germany anymore, right?
It's not Germany, but it's difficult to kind of count them out.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Mauricio. Really appreciate you coming on and having a great conversation. Where do people sign up for your newsletter, or where do they reach out to you?
Yeah, it's like if they search for Travel Tech Essentialist, they'll find it there. And I thank you very much, Bruce, Lori, and Christian, for inviting me. And I very much look forward to staying in touch with you. And if there's any questions that anybody that is listening to this or looking at this podcast, if they have any questions, please reach out to me via LinkedIn or Twitter or the newsletter or anything. I'll get it.
Excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mauricio. And I'll see you in
Thank
June
you.
in Barcelona, I believe. Thanks, guys.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.